Good evening, friends and family. And for those of you that are here watching, thank you for your patience. Our guest tonight, Johari Cole-Kweli, she is out in the country. And sometimes we have some difficulty with the streaming, but with persistence and perseverance, we're here. And so, Johari, I want to thank you for your persistence in that matter, and I want to thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Repair, restore, and grow Black communities. As you know, we're a private foundation, and we started to try and make a difference in our communities, our Black communities here in Chicago. And the way we're doing this is by enhancing the support and awareness of people who are doing business in the area. And we know that when we support our businesses, when you have a community where people, to us, a community is where people live, is where you work, is where you play. And so when we support our businesses, they're more likely to give back, whether they're hiring people from the community or whether they're donating to causes, providing opportunities for other business owners, serving as mentors for our children, and just inspiring other people who are interested in having a business. And so that's why we go out of our way to fight for our Black businesses. We have helped businesses get websites. When businesses are having problems, we try to do what we can to help them, making phone calls. The bookstore in Hyde Park, we had several events there for them last year. And so we also do this podcast every Wednesday night to enhance the awareness of our businesses. And it's not just a brief commercial type of interview. We want you to get to know who these people are that are behind these establishments. And so that's why we have this podcast every night, every Wednesday night. We are supporters of our bookstores. Want you to know the bookstore for this month is the Underground Bookstore. And Underground is located at 1727 East 87th Street. Their phone number is 773-768-8869. And we feature a Black bookstore on our website every month. And so Underground is the bookstore. We also feature a book giveaway. Why do we do this? Because we feel that it's very important for our people to read so that you can think critically and make your own decisions. There's so much influence out here today with the news media and different people. And so you need to come armed with knowledge. And so we give a book away every month, and not just any book. Matter of fact, the book that is being given away for this month is Powernomics by Claude Anderson. And Claude Anderson has a national plan to empower Black America in this book. It's a 5-year plan, and it's to help Black people become more self-sufficient and competitive as a group. All you have to do to become eligible to win this book is to subscribe to rrgbc.org. And if we select your name, we purchase the book and we ship it to you free of charge. That's how important we feel these books and the information in our books are so important to our community. And we have a public policy division where we are asking that our local schools and our local libraries give contracts to our Black bookstores. So please go to Save Black Bookstores Chicago at change.org and sign our petition to help us in our effort with that. So those are my basic announcements for tonight. We want to definitely get with our guest. Johari is a sustainably professional an educator, mentored by nature and years of multidisciplinary engagement. And Johari, I'm going to say one of the reasons that I was so interested in interviewing you is I met you and your husband. I guess it was about 30 years ago now. I met you in Whole Foods when Whole Foods first came to Chicago. And I thought Whole Foods was just the greatest thing because everything was under one roof and they had a restaurant upstairs. And I believe we were sitting up there talking, and you and your husband, you had just had your daughter, and you told me that you were going to leave Chicago and you were moving out to Pembroke. And I thought that was so brave and so awesome that you would do that. And that's exactly what you did. And so we want to talk about your journey, um, and how all of this panned out for you. So I'm going to give you the first opportunity here to just tell our audience who you are, first of all.
All right. Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me. And I am Johari Cole-Kweli. I am part of the team, my husband and I, and that moved to Pembroke. Yes, 30. It seems like it was just yesterday, but literally it had to be 30 years ago. And if I just had my daughter turn 29 this year, so you are still right
Yes,
around that's
yes,
absolutely in the ballpark.
yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm born and raised in Chicago, but also raised in Michigan, Covert, Michigan, which is a small agricultural Black town, about an hour and a half from Chicago. So, growing up, I had the best of both worlds. I am a city child, west side of Chicago, best side,
Wow.
K Town,
Okay, me too. Me
K
too.
Town, baby. Um,
That's right.
but
Best side.
also I had, so dealing with the urbanness of Chicago, but I also had that the wild child in me, where
Mm.
I was able to literally run fancy free, climb trees, run with the deers, hunt, fish. I hunted all the time with my grandfather, because we raised about 30, 40 hunting dogs at a time.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we had a family farm in Michigan. So it was only an hour and a half from Chicago. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was where I spent every weekend, every summer break, every spring break. So I literally was an urban and country hybrid.
Oh, wow.
And my
Okay,
grandparents were
so
just like Beverly Hillbillies. I'm telling you, it was,
oh my goodness.
yeah,
So that wasn't necessarily a something, that you weren't familiar
it was
with.
very familiar. It was like coming to Pembroke was like, literally being at home. So yeah, where we literally, I mean, I used to eat coon and skin rabbits and legs, and I mean,
I've been out there. I spent some time out there a few nights with
mhm.
Black Oaks Farm, because
Yes,
there are a number of
yes,
other black farmers out there. About how many
yes.
farmers are out there?
Well, in our association, we have what's called Pembroke Farming Family Association,
Hmm.
and there's about I think there's about 12 farm families that are in that association.
Wow. Okay.
But there are other association that are also living in the case. So there's quite a few Black farmers that live here in this area. A lot
Mhm.
of our farmers are, have passed on. It was a very Pembroke Township was one of the largest, Black agricultural communities in the entire state. And
Okay.
this is also where you had a lot of black cowboys come out of Pembroke as well. And so, a lot of so they do a lot of rodeo here in the area, the black rodeos.
Mm-hmm.
Every Memorial
Mm-hmm.
weekend, there's a 2-day rodeo event from people come all from around the country to do rodeo.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah. And some of the kids here have gotten scholarships to college, based on rodeo.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Okay.
that's
Now was Boots and Saddles part of
um,
that?
Boots and Saddles are a part of it. They're also part of our agricultural farming community as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have Runaway Buckers, you have the Altmans, which is Magic Kingdom. You have the largest one is the Ladding Rodeo, and they're the ones who put on the festival every Memorial weekend. And
Okay.
Mr. Ladding himself it's a generation. There's like 2 or 3 generations of black ranchers in that family, and they're actually globally recognized. They
Okay.
put their rodeo on the road, so they travel around the
Wow.
country and other places to do the rodeo. Yeah.
Do they ever come into Chicago? Is that some of the, black cowboys that we see in Chicago? Or any of them from Pembroke? Okay, we lost your audio. We
There we
lost
go.
your audio. There
Yes.
you go.
So
Okay.
traditionally they are from Pembroke area.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You have a
Okay.
lot more that are, streaming out of other, like Crete, I know has a large black cowboy association now as well. So,
Wow.
yeah, so there's
That's
quite a bit. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That
So,
is really interesting. See, this is the thing. We have so many people that are doing so many things out here
mhm.
that people don't know. I
Exactly.
went to Juneteenth event
Mhm.
over at 55th and Wentworth,
Mhm.
which is the Southside Community Federal Credit Union. And I said, there's a black skating rink right here in this mall. And most of the people that came in there didn't even know.
I didn't know that. It's on 55th and
Yeah.
Wentworth. Yeah.
I mean, not skating rink, a skate shop. Let me
Oh, a
straight
skate
clear that up.
shop.
It's a
Okay.
skate
Okay.
shop, and
Great.
they have an awesome and very creative selection of skates in there.
I have to look them up. Yes. Yes, I wouldn't mind checking
Absolutely.
that out. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I'm a product of both of those worlds. And then I went to Hyde Park High School, on
Mm-hmm.
the city south side. And yeah, so that's mine. And then from there, went to Michigan State University, majored in science. I'm a microbiologist, research scientist by
Mm-hmm.
training, and have worked pharmaceutical companies and everything before we decide to venture into natural healing,
Okay.
and natural methods to heal the body as opposed to pharmaceutical methods to heal the body. And so coming out of that training where I trained doctors, I worked as a research scientist on a lot of antibiotics and
Okay.
different antibiotics, and also I've done research in worked on Infamil, which is one of the baby formulas. Um,
Okay.
a lot of that taught me early on that there had to be a better way of literally healing our bodies or treating our bodies naturally. And
Mm-hmm.
that led to me actually turning back to the farm, because growing on the farm, it's, yeah, love the freedom and the running around and everything that I've done, but I said I wasn't going to shell another pea either.
Oh,
When you're young, you want to run away, like, I'm
okay.
getting away from
Okay.
this life, right? But when in my
Okay.
20s, I realized that I actually had to do a double take and pivot and go right back. That there were so many solutions, to how I was raised or what I was exposed to as a child growing up with Southern relatives, my
Mm-hmm.
grandparents, all of them bringing that knowledge from the South, a lot of old school wisdom. I don't know if your audience ever heard of, like, putting goose grease on the neck. making a
Okay.
poultice of goose grease and putting it on it.
So what does that
It
do?
treated mumps. If you had the mumps,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
They put a pack
Okay.
of goose grease, or
Okay.
eating or making horehound candy. That will help to build your immune system up, especially for colds.
Okay.
Elderberry juice, drinking, elderberry tincture. A lot of stuff is now very trendy in a lot of health food stores.
Yeah, there's elderberry all over the place now.
But when I was coming up, that was just a norm for, these old school wise women and men. That's what they did. That's how they
Okay.
treated a lot of different illnesses, or and so they knew herbs around the farm. My grandmother, when she visited here, when we moved down here, she was like, oh my God, there's, this is what we used to make a tincture out of every spring to cleanse the body out from the
Mhm.
winter.
Mhm. Sure.
Yeah, so they had a lot of wisdom then that kept them
Okay.
going, kept them strong. And so I
Mhm.
found myself circling back to them and circling back to learning how to can. My grandmother was like, you didn't want to learn how to can. I was like, I want to learn how to can now, Granny. I want
Uh,
to teach me instead of just me doing it and not knowing
sure.
necessarily
Sure.
why I was doing XYZ. So I was really attentive then. It was just, and her to tell me
Okay.
how to can. And
Well, a lot of people are developing an interest. Like you say, now some of this is
yeah,
becoming a little trendy.
yeah.
We have the
Hmm.
gardens, the community gardens
Hmm.
here. I actually have a little plot in
Hmm.
one of the community gardens here in Chicago, so people are kind of learning
Right.
how to grow food
Yeah. And
and
this
not
is 30
can it.
years of
My
progress.
pardon
This
me.
is 30 years of progress. I've been doing this.
Absolutely.
We first introduced even community gardens over 30 years ago. When we did our
Okay.
pivot, there were 7 of us. We were avid readers, and you were talking about bookstores. I think we might have wiped out the bookstores. We spent hundreds
Okay.
and hundreds and thousands of dollars buying every book that we can get our hand on. Um,
Oh, that's
and
fascinating.
and I yeah, if I can turn my camera now, you'll see the corner of my living room that's packed floor to ceiling with books, and that's just the corner
Hmm.
of a living room. Then there's a library in the
Okay.
back room that's a whole big library, and I'm not talking about the storage unit I have full of books that I can't get rid of.
My
Just
goodness. And these are all books that you have read and referenced.
and I can reference so many different ones, but back then,
Hmm.
30 years ago, 35 years ago, we didn't have Google. We didn't have the internet. We had our books. And book
Hmm.
exchange and book reading was what we did. We had book clubs where we would, get on a particular topic and everybody starts reading that, about it.
Sure.
And we had a lot of those. And so out of the book club, we were reading about health, nutrition, how to cure cancer, we were looking for all kinds of solutions, right?
Okay.
And we decided that, and one of the trips we used to take was to a Black organization called OBU, Organization of Black Unity, in
Hmm.
in Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and a phenomenal organization, just cutting edge, doing everything. And we traveled there every year to visit, and we fell in love with Whole Foods down there. This
Okay.
was before they became national, before they moved to
Hmm.
Texas. So we met with the original 7 Whole Foods owners, and sat with
Hmm.
them and said, we want to reproduce something like this in Chicago on the South Side. How do we do it?
Okay.
And we said, okay, the cooperative concept. So we took the cooperative concept, opened up a Kibalon Whole Foods in Chicago South Side. This was back.
And is that where you were doing the deliveries of
Yes.
produce? Okay, because I was one of your customers.
Yes, and that's where you met
Yes.
us. We were doing a Kibalon Whole Foods, a Kibalon meaning Africa, which is the Islamic name for Africa, and that's one of the or more ancient name for Africa. And we decided to do it on right there on 75th Street near Exchange was where we had
Yes.
our venue. Back
Yes.
then, we were organic produce only. We
Mhm.
did not. we had to educate a lot of people on what organic was. We probably stayed open about 2.5 years before we had to close the doors, because a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
were just not familiar with not just the cooperative concept, but
Mm-hmm.
we got a lot of conversations like, well, what are you doing to the food? What does organic mean? We don't want anything on our food. And we had to educate. Like, no,
Okay.
it's clean, it's pure food.
Well, talk about that. Talk about that a little bit
Mhm.
about organic foods and about co-ops.
Yeah.
Because I think during that time, co-ops were pretty popular. I don't know. I don't hear as much about them
Hmm.
now, but
Hmm.
maybe talk about those two things.
Yes, so we when we developed our cooperative of organic, we wanted to focus on clean food access, and we realized that there weren't there was a dearth of clean food access, good foods in our communities, and we
Mm-hmm.
chose Southside at that time, and we wanted to bring organic. So organic meaning that that's the way I was raised. I was raised on a farm where we didn't put anything. The only thing we would dust our crops with was lime to adjust the pH, which is natural, natural
Mm-hmm.
lime, and that adjusts the pH in the soil so it doesn't become as acidic. It's not very acidic. It actually makes it a lot
Okay.
more alkaline. Um,
Okay.
but and old fashioned remedies, of dealing with pests, or yeah, remedies dealing with pests and how to deal with control, different kind of infestations or things like that. When you're dealing with a natural methodology to do it, and you're not relying on synthetic chemicals that they're spraying. A lot of the food is sprayed with synthetic chemicals from the
Mm-hmm.
seed. They coat the seed in like different colored powders that you may see. Pink powder, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see all the seeds seem to be coated with pink or blue. Well, those are synthetic chemicals that they dip those seeds in. Some are either to make the seed grow, and some is to deter pests, so that may
Okay.
feed on the seed. So
So even the pests don't want them.
exactly,
Don't want to eat it.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we're
So why would we want to eat it?
exactly. So when you see those different colored seeds, beware. They're most likely coated with chemical pesticides. Yeah,
Okay.
chemical pesticides or herbicides to stop anything else from growing around it, or artificial fertilizer to make it grow.
So what are some natural things to
Mhm.
put on your garden to keep the pests away?
Mhm.
Because I think, here in Chicago, we have issues with squirrels. You know, the squirrel, they are bad.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that they are bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
We don't have as much issue with squirrels, or in the country, because we have such large fields. So my field
Hmm.
may be, what's considered a quarter city block. So quite, we're dealing with large acreages. We do have problems with deers, so ours is a little bit different. Deers, rabbits, like to munch a little bit
We
here
have
and there.
rabbits.
And
Hmm.
so those are the two biggest, the largest pests. And then if there are bugs, but usually with bugs, if your plant is unhealthy from the start,
Hmm.
if you have a bug infestation, then you really need to check your soil, because most times that
Okay.
means that the plant is weak because it's not getting proper nutrition. And everything
Okay.
starts with the health of the soil. If the soil is bad, then everything just is like a leaning tower of Pisa. From there, it's just going to
Hmm.
start declining. So you want to check the soil and make sure you have good soil. Okay. I know
So how do
in
you
that,
how do you what do you do? Um,
you test the soil.
hmm.
First of all, you want to make sure if your soil is, believe it or not, that soil is black for a reason. Okay. First of all, soil has melanin
Hmm.
in it. And
Okay.
the fungi that creates the soil health is actually melanated. And they actually have done recent studies within the last 5 years where they've taken those fungi, the microorganisms, the microscopic mushrooms or fungi in the soil, and taken them into space to see how they respond in space. Because of the melanin in it, they were able to absorb UV radiation and survive.
Mm-hmm.
The fungi survive beautifully in space and flourish.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
because of the melanin, that they're melanin rich. So soil is jet black and full of microbes, other microbes, not just the fungi, but the fungi is what gives soil a really nice rich smell. And if you
Mm-hmm.
hold that soil and hold it in your hand, it should be able to clump up. That means it has a lot of different matter in it.
Okay.
Meaning it has a lot of different leaves or other plant material that have built the soil up and have bulked it up. So it actually has, how can I say, structure to it. Okay.
It's kind of clumpy.
The soil has structure to it. Now the smell is coming from the smell, and the color is coming from your fungi. Okay. But the bulk of it, the structure of it, comes from material like leaves, trees, limbs that have broken down and composted back into the soil. Okay.
Okay.
And so that old plant matter gives it structure. Now you need the structure in the soil because that's what your other microorganisms cling to. If you don't have the structure, they don't have anything to cling to, they'll fall right through.
Okay.
Then you have what's considered, if you don't have microorganisms and fungi in your soil, you have what's considered dead dirt. So there's between dirt and soil. Okay, soil is actually alive. Dirt is dead.
Okay.
One quick
And then also when you're planting, the issue of turning the soil, like you planted this year and you planting on the same lot next year, you need to do something to that soil.
Usually what you want to do is put a cover crop on it, or you allow the old plant material to kind of die down. You can cover it and so it decomposes in that soil, or you can put a cover crop on it, say grasses that can be turned under and provide nutrition back into the soil. So what happens when you're planting, when you're planting different plants eat differently. Each one of them have different nutrient needs. So your fruiting plants, they take a lot of nutrients. They're like pregnant mothers. Pregnant mothers eat a lot, right?
Sure.
So any of your fruiting plants, they're going to eat a lot out of the soil. They need stuff out of the soil, so they're going to constantly be eating and grubbing out of the soil. Okay. But then you have other plants that actually have rhizomes or other protein nodules on their base, on the roots, to feed the soil. They put nutrients back into the soil. Or certain.
Now, what kind of plants are those?
That's why you see a lot of, like, one of them is like soybean. You see soybeans used in Illinois. Illinois is like 90% country. A lot of places outside of Chicago is just all farm. It's just country, right? But you see a lot of corn and soybeans in combination. So one year they'll plant corn, which is a heavy feeder. So it eats a lot of nutrients out of the ground. So they won't plant that corn in that same spot the next year. They'll put soybean in that spot to put nutrients back in the soil. Okay. So they'll alternate.
Okay.
So you'll see soybean on one side of the field, corn on the other, and then the next year they'll flip it.
Okay.
So one is giving to the soil and one is taking nutrients out.
So someone like myself with a little plot in the community garden. Well, I'm growing greens. I have different varieties of greens. Some peppers. I have tomatoes. I had an overabundance of tomatoes last year, so I didn't make sure I didn't plant as many tomatoes this year, and some cucumber and squash.
And those are all what? What kind of plants are those?
They're eating from the soil.
They're all eating from the soil because they're what? They're all fruit.
Yeah, fruit.
Tomatoes is a fruit. Peppers is a fruit. It doesn't matter if it's sweet or not sweet. Anything that has seeds is a fruit.
Okay.
Okay.
And what about the greens?
Now, greens is a leaf. Okay.
Okay.
And they don't extract as much nutrients. They don't extract as much nutrients from the soil. So, you know, but not as much as the fruiting plants do. Okay. There are some things that you can plant in those areas too. Peanuts is a very good one. That's one of the reasons why George Washington Carver why George Washington Carver promoted planting peanuts to a lot of the farmers.
Okay.
One reason because the peanuts added structure to the soils because the peanuts grow underneath the ground, right? So they're actually rhizomes or protein bodies that feed the soil. Okay, they grow underneath the ground. So he recommended everyone to feed their soils. Okay. Okay, and also to provide structure to the soil. Okay. Those are some things that you can even plant. You can raise peanuts up here too. And they'll feed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. When should you plant those? Like early in the spring or?
No, peanuts are hardy, hot weather plant. Like you were saying, like all your other plants, your cucumbers, all those fruiting plants, tomatoes, peppers, those are all hot weather plants. So they need to be anytime after Mother's Day is that's the
okay. Yeah. So I should have peanuts in there now.
Yeah. Well, you can even plant some now. Yeah. This is June and it's starting to get hot. They'll thrive.
Now, what about your herbs? Okay, you have different kind of herbs. You got rosemary, basil, thyme, sage. Those are the ones most people know about.
Yeah, and those are leaf plants. So those are leaves, and so they're not as heavy feeders as, like I said, the fruiting body plants are, but they are also used aromatically to deter pests. They're also used to feed the soil. So your different herbs are quite well known. Like you can plant something and plant mint around it. Mint will deter certain pests, and it might do well for your. I'm not positively sure on this one, but it might do well for your squirrel, to deter your squirrel away from you. Try planting mint, a border around it of mint.
Okay, I'm gonna plant some mint around my house.
Okay. Yeah.
Because these squirrels,
yeah,
they are very, very pesty.
Yes.
Wow. So you're able to do this out in Pembroke, but we're also able to do this in Chicago.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yes. We just plant larger scale than what you would do mostly in Chicago. Even I'm part of a board called Star Farms. I'm a board member at Star Farms, which is an urban garden in Chicago on 51st and Morgan is where. And also
I'm familiar.
Yes.
I'm familiar. That's a big garden.
Yeah, it's a big urban garden. Yes, it is, but it's still considered urban. Yes.
Wow.
And we also got a few more lots recently. 52nd and Carpenter is where the other location is. And and there's a couple more locations that I know they're trying to complete and develop as well. That's one of the big urban gardens. Also, what used to be called Growing Power, which is Erica Allen's urban field. And I think they're totaling they have quite a few satellites. And I think she said they're totaling about 40 acres worth of land in Chicago area, which is a lot of land. A lot of land. when
Okay.
you combine it. And they're doing a lot. I think theirs is on near West Side. And the actual address is eluding me, so I have to come back to you on that one. But and that's Erica Allen's group. So
Okay.
there's quite a bit of urban, wonderful urban growers, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that are doing
Are a lot of
phenomenal work.
people, are a lot of people canning? Are a lot of people doing that
They're
now,
beginning,
or is it
yes, there's a lot of people who are starting to can or what is called value added products. And value added products are your products that you're gleaning from your gardens and you're creating a secondary product from it. So from the primary fresh food. So they're canning, they're
okay?
making soups, they're making jams, jellies. Star Farms is going to be making tamales from
Mm,
things that they collected from the garden.
okay.
Hmm.
So do you see with this with all these gardens that we have here in Chicago, I know the community garden that I'm in, people have their personal gardens, and then they also have a section where they give food away
Yes.
to the pantry, like to the food
Hmm.
pantries. So
Yes.
do you see the development of the gardens, really helping in that way?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Going back 30 years ago, like I said earlier, when we first started Akiba on Whole Foods, on City South Side, there weren't community gardens. There weren't markets, farmers markets. Um, there, you just didn't find that in different places around
Mhm.
the city. So I'm looking at progress. To me, it's
Sure.
completely like a 30-year incline of just,
Mhm.
explosion of support. Um, in 2001, we had the first Chicago area wide food summit where people who were concerned about food access, concerned about health, concerned about people not getting anything from food, um, were all at this conference. From there,
Mhm.
things exploded. We went around the state with a listening session. From there, we created Food Farms and Jobs Act. I was right next to the governor when he signed it into law.
Okay.
That offered a lot of
Now is this
opportunity.
Prisker?
No, that was Governor. Tell me, no, this was back. Governor,
Okay.
not
Okay.
Ryan. What's
All
his name? He was another large guy. Now I forgot all my governors.
right. Me too.
Yeah, you had
Whatever.
Blagojevich. Who was right before Blagojevich? What was his name?
I can't remember.
Yeah, anybody in the
Trying to
audience may
look
know.
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anyway, yeah,
Yes.
it was that particular governor that signed the Food Farms and Jobs Act into law for the entire state. And what that did
Okay.
was it catapulted the opportunity for funding to create community gardens because we realized that we didn't have food in our communities. One
Mm-hmm.
of the young ladies who's a dear friend of mine who used to come to Pembroke all the time, she needed access to organic food for the health of her child.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't Thompson. No, it wasn't Thompson. It was another guy. Um,
Okay.
but
You
she
trying to
needed,
figure that out.
I know where everybody's trying to figure out who was that governor.
Yeah, which one it was.
Yeah. So, and this was 2009. Who was the governor in 2009? That's when we passed the Food Farms and Jobs Act, 2009.
Okay. So all right. So we'll figure that out.
So anyway, but the young lady who was, kept coming to Pembroke, learning about gardening, who was a classmate of mine. Her name was LaDonna Redmond. She's the one that
Mm-hmm.
coined food desert. But not Blagojevich, not
Not
Blagojevich.
Blagojevich.
No,
You're
before him.
still trying to figure that out.
No, this is Jeopardy. Come on, win some a tomato plant.
Okay,
Anyway,
go ahead.
yeah, so she's the first one to start coining about food deserts, the term
Okay.
food deserts, and how she can get a AK, a Glock or 40, some other kind of 45 on the west side of Chicago, but she doesn't have access to an organic tomato.
Hmm.
LaDonna Redmond went on to do TED Talks. She became the spokesperson for accessing, you know, good food around the world, actually. Um, and now she's developing co-op stores in Minneapolis. I just went there to
Okay.
see one. So getting back to that. But I know the farmers here used to. We were the first to create farmers markets in Austin, the community of
Okay.
Austin in Chicago, at Trinity United Church,
Hmm. Yes.
Seaway National Bank. Those were all of our farmers here in Pembroke. Pembroke farmers
Hmm.
actually go further back. Do you remember the vegetable man on the west sides of Chicago? Vegetable man, get your vegetables here.
Vegetable man. I remember the
American
watermelon man.
Thanksgiving, the watermelon man, the vegetable man.
I remember the watermelon man.
They came from Pembroke.
Sure.
They
They
came.
came from Pembroke.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Um,
I was reading a little bit of history
mhm.
on Pembroke. They mentioned Pap Tedder.
Yes, he was one of the
Uh,
original settlers here. Hmm.
hmm hmm
Yeah,
So it's been a black settlement for black people, what, since in the 1800s or maybe
1860s. Yes,
1860?
and since the
Yeah.
1860s. Yeah, and it
So
was
is that what prompted you to go to Pembroke?
um
Because you could have gone, I mean, you could have gone anywhere with
yeah,
with your background.
yeah. Yeah, we just fell in love. We said it was calling us, I guess. We were coming down here for one of the farmers here, Basu. They do all kinds of things at their farm. And now their
Hmm.
next generation um, has, like, I think 300 heads of sheep or goats or something. So
Oh,
yeah, so
really?
their son is taking
In
over.
Pembroke?
Yes, yeah. So, you have
Wow.
multi generations now that are heading up the farm, and but we were coming down to visit and to come see the rodeo, my husband and
Hmm.
and we just kept getting called to this area by the ancestors. That's what we say. Um,
Okay.
until we found that we needed to be here, that this was the place we wanted to settle and raise our children. So,
Okay.
so our children
So
raised
are
here.
young people
Mhm.
coming to Pembroke and getting into this industry of
Um,
agriculture?
yes and no. So it's hard work. A lot of people praise us for being revolutionary, in our 20s, coming down here to, you know, get off the land, get off the urban cycle, and forge our own way. Um, but it's not easy, and
Hmm.
we find that we were alone many times. A lot of people said they wanted to do it, but when
Sure.
they came down to see what it was, they quickly ran away.
Yeah. So what
Like,
are
you
some of the
actually got to
challenges?
work.
So what are some of the challenges? Because people are always talking about moving and going somewhere
No,
else, and
right.
and then people think about going to rural
Mhm.
areas. And so what are some of the challenges? I mean,
Well,
I know the benefits.
the benefits are outstanding.
Yeah.
The challenges of this area, now, we don't have as much of a challenge as further in the country, few hours away from a major city. We're only an hour away from Chicago. I mean,
Sure.
you know, yeah, to get to my door, to my mom's door, was an hour's drive. That's not a big deal.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
we have conveniences. The City of Kankakee is only 20 to 30 minutes away. So, if we want to go to the show, you want some urban atmosphere, there's all kinds of Red Lobsters and everything, within 30
Hmm.
minutes drive. So
Okay.
it's a little it's even, I'm on a podcast. My husband's talking. But so you can still live that kind of hybrid life, like I mentioned how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
My children are they're city, suburban, rural, country kids. they they
Okay.
they
Okay.
you know,
So they got a little of both.
yeah, one minute my son is riding the goat, like, trying to teach
Mm-hmm.
it a lesson, or fuss with the roosters, and the next thing he's up in Chicago or in the suburbs hanging out and partying, whatever. So
Okay.
they have both, I guess, the best of both worlds in that sense.
Okay.
um
Okay.
and whatever they can extract from that. But the challenge is that it takes a lot of elbow grease. We live on we
Mm-hmm.
have our well water, which is the best, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not living where we don't have conveniences. I mean, yeah, we have electricity. We don't have good internet. That's yeah. So the internet
Okay.
is a challenge. The internet
Okay.
is the biggest challenge, but it's not like we don't have electricity or running toilets or anything. Yes, I do have an outhouse for
Okay.
farm workers and for
Okay.
guests, and
Okay.
it smells better than my actual bathroom sometimes. Uh,
Okay.
it stays
Okay.
clean, and it's built on a compost system, so
Mm-hmm.
it literally is a compost toilet system, so it really has a pleasant smell. You
Well,
know.
I know when I came out to visit Black Oaks, they had she was using biochar. I
Hmm.
think that's what she called it, biochar
Yeah,
in the
biochar.
and
Yeah,
it was very clean.
yeah,
Very clean.
absolutely. I mean, so there's ways of doing it, and so next time if you go there, I'm right next to it. My farm,
Yes.
yeah. And they moved there, hanging out with us, and then next thing you know, they said, "We bought
Hmm.
the place right next to you." So it's like,
Okay.
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 So when you're saying people moving into the area,
Hmm.
quite a few. And as far as young people taking over the craft of farming,
Hmm.
we're trying to do our best to encourage. But that's a
Okay.
national problem. It literally is. It's not just Black farmers. Um, there's a national problem. The average age of farmers is like 58 years old.
Okay.
That's the average age.
Wow. That's the average age.
Yes.
So they've been doing it for a minute.
One of the reasons is because there's not enough new blood getting into it. Um,
Hmm.
it's now it's due, but for the longest period of time, the avenue for farming was not lucrative enough to support, especially the modern day lifestyles
Okay.
of young folks. So usually the older folks who are hired get into farming because they have a source of income,
Hmm.
or they're established in a career and they do it as a side hobby, an
Hmm.
additional, and they work off, they call it working off farm. And
Hmm.
that's what my husband and I have done all these years. We've worked off farm to support our habit of farming,
Okay. Okay.
our farm habit.
Hmm.
And, so
Yeah, because your husband has a chemical engineering background, right?
and actually it's he's a network engineer.
Networking engineer.
Yeah,
Okay.
computer network engineer. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but when a lot of people, the reason why it's difficult is because farming can be expensive just starting off. We
Hmm.
can take a garden and we can teach kids how to grow some seeds in a cup. That's fine. And everybody needs to grow their own food and, at least have a backyard, grow some lettuce or feed yourself somehow. But when you get into
Hmm.
the commodity business of farming, or the commercial end where you're actually selling, it's a whole nother ballgame.
Okay.
And especially if you're doing large scale insurance costs or the equipment costs. A lot of times we are a lot, especially in the African American community, we've skipped several generations of farmers. So we have maybe grandparents farmed, but our parents didn't, and now we're coming back and farming ourselves. But we don't have the old farm land anymore. We don't have the barns and the equipment anymore. So a lot of the new farmers are starting off with a blank slate. They don't have equipment. They don't have the barns. They don't have anywhere to store their equipment. The tractors, the implements that go on. A tractor is $10,000, $20,000.
So what about the support from the government? Are the government doing anything about helping the Black farmers? We hear a lot about the Black farmers.
There's a lot of them still waiting on their money after 20 years.
My goodness.
Yeah, that was, yeah. So you had a lot of discretion. A lot of policies did not support small Black, not considered a farmer country if you had under 200 acres of land.
Okay.
So you can imagine you were not considered a farmer, even though you're raising food, probably in the hood, in neighborhoods, right? You're selling locally. You're probably using the farm computer times out. You're supporting your family farming, but if you have less than 200 acres of land, you were not considered a real farmer. So you would not get government. You would not qualify for insurance coverage. You wouldn't qualify for subsidies. Okay. All that is starting to change now. We just opened up the Farm Service Agency that supports farmers literally just within the last several months. Opened up actually started recognizing urban growers as commercial farmers.
Okay.
Yeah. Just within the last several months. We're talking
because I know some restaurants. There are some restaurants that are getting their foods. Well, I go to the vegan restaurants, so some of the ones that I know are getting their foods from local and
absolutely
Black-owned farmers.
Yeah, we supply restaurants and in stores and grocery stores. We do, and we've always done that. But not until within the last year or so have we even been recognized as real farmers. So recognized in the sense that, and all that changed when I said we started with the Food, Farms, and Jobs Act in 2009. We literally had to get the state to understand the entire state is a food desert, not just in urban areas of Chicago. The entire state is a food desert.
Okay, how was that?
Well, even though we're the largest producers of corn and soybean in the, actually in the world, the Midwest is. Illinois imports 99% of its food. So the food that we eat, 99% of it is imported into the state.
Okay.
You can't eat the kind of soybean. Only a certain percentage of it is actually edible. Most of it is used for turf grass, ethanol, plastics. So all that corn and soybean, majority of it is not even edible.
Wow.
Yeah. And so if we're importing at the tune, and this is the stats we were seeing in 2009. I'm not updated on what the stats are now. But in 2009, what we saw was the state spending $15 million importing food in at that time. I'm sorry, $15 billion importing food in, 99% of the food. If there was a truck embargo or something happened where they couldn't truck the food in, we
would be in trouble.
3 days worth of food supply in all the stores. That's it. 3 days.
I even noticed, like, if the weather gets bad,
Mhm,
let's say we know there's a snowstorm
mhm,
coming here in Chicago.
mhm.
You better get to the grocery store because you go in there and you go in there late and the shelves are almost empty,
Absolutely.
especially in the produce section.
Absolutely. And so if truckers can't get the food in, or however they're importing the food in, like I said, if the truckers go on strike, you literally got to buy the food in all the grocery stores.
Hmm.
So that reasons why the Food Farms and Jobs Act was passed, because the state realized, oh my goodness, we need to do something about this. There isn't an
Okay.
emergency food plan. Um, there was no emergency food plan. There were no alternative routes to getting food in, or was the state even supporting farmers in the state to grow. So
Okay.
because of that act, things started changing around, and you started getting more support for people to buy vacant lots to grow food. Um, so,
Okay.
yeah, support for farmers markets everywhere.
Okay.
Um, support for directly to the farmers, to support for equipment buying and things like that. And that went all the way up, even through the ranks to nationally.
Hmm.
Our Food Farms and Jobs Act in the state of Illinois was even some read and backed up by Harvard School of Business.
Okay.
Oh, I'm having hold on.
Okay. I can still hear you.
Oh, you can? Great, because my
Yes,
video
I can.
my
I can
video
still
on
hear
my
you.
end just went out.
Hmm.
Yeah, my system is having
I can still hear
problems.
you and I can still see you.
Just can't see, so I'll
Hmm.
just do it blindly. That's fine. Um,
Okay.
that led to the national. It's called Farm Foods and Jobs Act, which was passed in
Okay.
2012, based on what we did in Illinois,
Okay.
and all of that led to more funding being released to support farmers. You know, a lot more to support agriculture, period, in however many ways, and especially for disadvantaged farmers
Hmm.
that were not traditionally seen as real farmers. So, like I said, now we always tell, if anybody wants to sell, if you're going to sell a penny worth of food, you're considered a commercial farmer. If
Wow.
you're growing any food that you're using, if you're growing any of your food to sell, you're considered a commercial farmer. And there are rules and regulations that you have to abide by.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Now, most of the food that the farmers are selling, organic.
Um, yes and no. It depends on who it is. There are
Hmm.
a lot of, you mean at the farmers markets?
Sure. Yes.
Not all of them, no. You have a
Hmm.
wide variety of different farmers at the farmers markets. Some are conventional farmers that,
Okay.
and then some say, will be whatever you want them to be.
Hmm.
You say, are you
Well,
organic?
yeah. Well, some people, and some
Yeah,
people
I'm
will say,
organic.
well, some people will say, well, I can't say organic,
Hmm.
but I haven't put anything on my on the food,
Right, and
They'll
so
say
you
that.
have natural
Hmm.
farmers. My grandparents never, they didn't know what organic was. They didn't have that kind of terminology for it, but they didn't put anything on the food. They grew it in a natural way, and holistic.
Now,
So,
you mentioned the state,
mhm,
okay, looking at us and our vulnerability to
yes,
not having foods grown here
hmm,
and doing something about that. So on the individual level, and especially in our communities, what should people be looking at as far as a rule of thumb? Because this is about sustainability,
right, hmm,
being able to maintain and support whatever you got going over time, right?
hmm,
So Uh, I hear people saying they have so much food stored. Um, what's your rule of thumb on that?
As far as being prepared for emergency situation.
Sure.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have my
Absolutely.
stored canned goods. I do try to can every year, even if it's a little something. Some years I don't can, at all, but I may have, enough to pull out. Um, I gave my daughter, like when she moved into an apartment, I gave her some, I think it was some chili I had made, vegetarian chili that I had made. I think that was what she had opened, and it was over 10 years old. And we popped it open. It was just like yesterday.
Okay.
So, canning, having a place to store canned goods is really critical, as
Mm-hmm.
well as actually doing it, learning the love of it. But more so than anything is to realize that your your health and nutrition should come from your hands primarily. So people ask,
Mm-hmm.
why do we grow food? We grow to feed ourselves.
Sure.
Having that connection, to know what's going on in your food, what you're putting in it, it's very, not just humbling, but it gives your that sense of connection to the earth. And it also lets you respect food in a way that you don't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the lessons I
And people throw a lot of food away,
very.
you
Oh,
know?
and it's horrible, the hoardingness. People go to
Mm-hmm.
pantries, and we supply fresh vegetables to pantries, especially down here. And during the pandemic, we were supplying to the WIC places in Chicago. We were making sure that we were considered essential workers during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
all the support to keep the farms going, we were getting a lot of support during that time. But the people, so I was saying, I see people who hoard food. They have boxes and boxes of food that they get from the pantries, and collect it, and it goes to waste.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot that goes into food. Um, I had a relative who I picked a huge basket of peas for to give to them, and and they let them sit instead of shelling them, and they would have had a wonderful crop of crowder peas. They let them sit in the corner and rot
Oh
because they
wow.
had no connection to what it took for
Connection.
us to plow the land, to plant the seeds, to cultivate, then to pick, just to get it to them.
That's why it's important to work, you know, I think, for what you have, to develop and create what you have so you have a better appreciation of what you have,
Absolutely.
you know, to just give away and give away. There is a lot of waste. And I noticed myself with my garden, since I've had my garden, there's less fresh produce going in the garbage
Yeah,
because I'm going and I'm getting and I'm eating, and when that's just about gone, I can go back and get some more. Um, and that kind of appreciation for nature, can carry over into other areas of your life.
absolutely. But
You know.
and I really particularly, talk to people about food. I did a lecture one year called "Don't Bite the Hands That Feed." Um,
Hmm.
farming is one of the most noble jobs that anybody, or professions that anyone can take up,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
a farmer is the first connection with the soil and your food that you're eating on your table. So the nutrition and the health of the food you're eating and buying from the grocery stores starts with a farmer.
That's right.
And whatever that farm, whatever it's going to be, we are putting the love into it, the spirit into it, making sure the soil is healthy, making sure it is highly nutritious. That begins right here.
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of people don't understand that connection. I think if people understood that connection, they would definitely support farming more. They
Okay.
may take it up as a profession more. Um, but if anything else, they would, like I said, respect the not just the craft, but respect respect food better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you and your farm, as owner and operator of Iyabo Farms, am I saying that correctly?
Iyabo. The I
Okay.
is Iyabo. The
Iyabo.
I is pronounced as a E.
Iyabo.
Iyabo.
Okay.
Hmm.
So, and you have organic produce, and you also, I see, you've done food demonstrations.
Hmm.
Talk about food safety. You have environmental camps. And is there a way for people to take advantage of, what you're offering, some of the services that you're offering? Um,
Yes, they can.
yeah.
They can connect. We also do poultry. We sell eggs. We sell fresh chicken. Um,
Mhm.
so those are some of the other things. We're raising raising goats now, not sheep. I'm thinking of Shango. We're raising
Mhm.
goats, and we just started building a cow breeding program.
Okay.
So, some of the ways that they can support the farm is by they can connect with us, look up Iyabo Farms, and support by purchasing produce or purchasing some of the items.
So how would they get someone in Chicago? How would they get the items?
We usually deliver. We do have a delivery to a lot of customers in Chicago. We have a delivery service that does that, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's one of the ways. So we have a lot of people who actually support directly to the farm, or there's like Majani restaurant,
Majani. Mm-hmm.
Majani restaurant, and so we sell greens to him, and so they can support the restaurants that support the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, when we talk about sustainability, you think about recycling, you
Hmm.
think about clean water, and you think about planting, which is so important not only for our food sources but our environment. And so this is very important. This is very important to our survival
Absolutely.
as people. And I wanted to ask you, how do your children feel about being out there
Well, they
in
run away.
Pembroke?
They run away like I did, as fast as possible. Uh, the ways of the young. Um,
Okay.
yeah, sometimes when you wonder if you're doing the right thing by
Mhm,
raising your children differently
mhm.
from a lot of their peers, you, it comes back around. I know when my son was around
Sure.
11, and I told him, I said, "Hey, go get your boombox, and so we can hear some music while we're planting seeds in the greenhouse." And he was like, "We already got music." And I said, "Really?" And he was listening to the birds and the sounds of
Nice.
nature. That was
Mhm,
enough music for
mhm.
him at the time.
Sure.
And I was like, "Huh, okay." And I
Okay.
just had to humbly like, "Great," like, "Wow, okay, you think it okay." Or when they come back and or when they say you better, you better not sell the farm, whatever you do. Uh, it-
Okay.
now they don't necessarily want to work it, but but they
Okay.
don't want us to sell it either. Uh,
I think what you've done, you've given them a choice,
Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
get out here and, they deal with what they deal with,
Yeah, they
but
do.
there's a choice.
Hmm.
There's a choice here, you know, and a very healthy and sustainable choice.
Absolutely. Our son did come home
Option.
from college this
Mhm.
summer, and he is working the farm this summer. So kudos to him. He's working the farm,
Mhm.
farm with us this summer. Yeah.
Okay.
But they want to, they also want to make sure that there's inroads to gaining some revenue from it. They can't
Sure.
work for free. you
Mm-hmm.
know they've done that all their lives. uh, but now they have to, um, they have bills to pay. So that's one of the things I was saying, that farms have to be sustainable. They have to be, if people have the passion and want to get into farming, it needs to support them. It
Okay.
needs to be able to support them,
Okay.
support their families. They need to be able to grow and be a part of, as a profession, to
Mm-hmm.
continue to do what they love to do. Yeah.
Well, I think I've mentioned maybe on another show about, I mean, okay, I live in Chicago, I work, and I noticed it's hard to go to the garden sometimes. And but when I get there and I start working, it's very healing, it's very calming.
Hmm.
When I come out of there, I feel better. you know,
Yeah.
even though I had maybe dragged myself in there because I got to go water, I have to go over here and water, but
Hmm.
working with the earth is very very healing.
Well, we're of the earth.
Yes.
We're people of the soil and the sun. So that's our connection. We're just going home. That's why we feel
Hmm.
rooted there. And everyone feels better when they're connected with nature. Well, I won't say everyone. Some people, they can do away with it. They don't have anything to do with it. But and you have that. But for the majority of the people, being a part of that connection is important to the spirit.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, I'm going to let you give us some closing remarks. I'm going to make no, I'm going to make my announcements real quick first. Um, Family, we've been talking to Johari Cole-Kweli,
Mhm.
and she is at Pembroke Farm, and we've been talking about sustainability and farming and how it's expanded out there and it's expanding here in the Chicago area. And it's a necessity. It's something that we all need to look at and definitely support our small farmers that are out here, providing this produce that we need here in the state of Illinois and here in Chicago. Um, and so, as I mentioned earlier, um, we have our book giveaway. Our book giveaway this month is for Claude Anderson's book, Power Nomics. And all you have to do is subscribe to rrgbc.org and you can become a winner. Go to Save Black Bookstores Chicago at change.org and sign our petition so that our bookstores can get support from our local libraries and our public schools. You can also go to our website and make donations and shop at our store. That helps us to continue to do the work that we are doing. And the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, which is right there at 55th and the Dan Ryan. They are the first and only Black-owned credit union here in the state of Illinois. They've been there for over 20 years. In order for a bank to thrive, they need you to open up an account. So please support the Southside Community Federal Credit Union because they have definitely supported our communities here on the South Side. And so, Johari, I'm going to let you have the closing remarks. I want to thank you so much
Thank you.
for taking time. We had a little difficulty getting on, but it was definitely well worth it. And what you're doing is just is great. All of the work that you have done, the associations that you're affiliated with, and the work that you're going to continue to do. So I'm just gonna let you have some closing remarks.
Well, I feel like I've exhausted the tongue a little bit, but I think that one of the biggest takeaways that everyone out there should um, adhere to or heed to would be, eating better. Um, One of the biggest things my grandmother had always told was not to feed my children a lot of the commercial food that is out there, from the McDonald's to Kentucky Fried Chickens to Chick-fil-A's or whatever there is, because there isn't any love in the food. And
Absolutely.
when I realized that, that was one of the other reasons why I said I wanted to raise my children on the farm. At least that to
Mm-hmm.
be their first exposure. It won't be their only exposure, nor their last, but that was going to anchor them in many ways that I couldn't have done if I were to, be in an urban setting. But that was our choice. But we can do it wherever you are, just exposing your children. Their health is the first thing. Feeding them real whole food
That's right.
is a huge plus to their well-being growing up, and their mental and spiritual being. So that's one of the biggest things I'll leave.
That's a great one. That's why I think that's why my grandmother's food always tasted so good.
Mhm.
Because she did put so much love into her cooking. She enjoyed
Absolutely.
cooking, and she enjoyed cooking for her family. So moms and dads out there, let's get in the kitchen and start cooking our food,
There you go.
you know?
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So with that, we're gonna say goodnight. And Johari, thank you again for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you,
All
Denise.
right.
All right. Good night.